so cute.
I know, right?
Oh, Church of God, united to serve one common Lord, proclaim to all one message with hearts in glad accord. Christ ever goes before us, we follow day by day with strong and eager footsteps along the upward way. Welcome.
We're so happy to have you here today on our spring day. If you are still in the lobby space, would you come on in, join us for worship? And for everyone else, would you stand?
Oh, Church of God, united to serve one common Lord, proclaim to all one message with hearts in glad accord. Christ ever goes before us, we follow day by day with strong and eager footsteps along the upward way. Though creeds and tongues may differ, they speak, O Christ, of thee, and in thy loving spirit we shall one people be. Lord, may our faithful service and singleness of aim proclaim to all the power of thy redeeming name. May thy great power be answered, that we may all be one, close bound by love, united in thee, God's blessed Son, to bring a single witness, to make the pathway bright, that souls which grope in darkness may find the one true light. O Church of God, united to serve one common Lord, proclaim to all one message with hearts in glad accord. Christ ever goes before us, we follow day by day with strong and eager footsteps along the upward way. Would you take a seat?
Our stage is falling apart. Fix that later. Good morning. It is so good to be with you this morning on this Fool Spring Sunday morning. I think it's like 40 or 45 degrees warmer than it was at this time last week. Regardless of the temperature, it's great to be with you. My name's Jeremy. I'm the pastor here at the Grove Cottage Grove, and we are a church that exists to grow goodness. So my hope is that you're being here with us in the room today, you're watching with us online, you're interacting with us out in the community throughout the week is somehow nurturing healing, wholeness, and beauty in your life just through our interaction. Just want to turn your attention to a couple things as we get started related to kids within worship. Kids are valued members of this church community. It's not just that we permit them to be here, but we celebrate them and we want to create the space, including the physical space for them to feel welcomed. So within the worship center, we have activities in the backs of each of the chairs for kids to be able to do or adults to be able to do if you find your hands getting a little bit anxious while you're sitting there. We also have our wiggle space on the side here for kids to be able to get up and move their bodies if sitting in a chair for an hour or less than an hour is problematic. We also have our programming, which is available for birth all the way up through 5th grade. So we have our Grove Nursery, which is right out in the Commons area for ages birth through 3 years. That's a staff nursery. It has the live stream going in there. And then we also have our Grove Kids programming, which is for ages 4 through 5th grade. And in just a few minutes, we will be able to sing them out to be able to participate in some play-based, age-appropriate learning. The one thing that we ask is that if this is their first time with us, that we have you register them. So you can either register them by getting one of these cards, which is on the back table, or you can register them by, you can do it online by either scanning the QR code up here, or if you have one of the worship handouts on the right-hand side, there's a QR code there as well, and then that gets emailed to our leaders. We ask that for a few reasons. One, so we know who they are. We can address them by name. Names are important. But then also if there are any other things that we ought to know about, if they have any medical concerns or allergies or anything, so we can make sure that they are getting what they need and nothing more than what they need, if that makes sense. That is it for announcements, at least for now. So at this point, we're going to move into Connection Point. Connection Point, as a reminder, is your opportunity to connect with people around you. Building relationships, even through forced interaction, sometimes is incredibly important. So in just a few moments, we'll have you stand up, find someone near you don't know or don't know very well, introduce yourself, and then to lower the anxiety level a little bit, if you have no idea what to talk with these people about, you at least have one question that we all can talk about. So during our pre-service meeting earlier today, we were talking about my daughter Bria. My other 3 members of my family are not here today. They're at a basketball tournament. Bria chose to stay with Dad. So we're going to go have a date after she sits through both worship services today. And so the question came up like, well, what are you going to do? What's your favorite date? So that goes out to you as well. Whether it is with a significant other or a friend or a child, what is or was a favorite date outing that you have had? We're at least going to go get some pizza. I know that. I'm trying to get her to do something else. Like, think of something fun, Bria. She can't. Okay, pizza will be great. But if you have another idea, this is a really fun outing that you've done with a significant other or friend or a child. What is that thing? So once you stand up, find someone near you don't know or don't know very well, introduce yourself, discuss this question or whatever else, and we'll reconvene in a few minutes.
Jesus loves the little children, all the children of the world. Every color, shape, and type, they are precious in His sight. Jesus loves the little children of the world.
Party lights.
Still have our disco ball here. One of our 4 disco balls from the piano, from the pajama ball. I will not put that up here, but. What's that? Sure. Yeah. I don't need to go into details about having a strobe light in worship and that giving me the last sign that I needed to no longer be a part of this one church. We'll move on. Hey, as you came in this morning, hopefully you received one of these worship handouts. If so, I'll turn your attention to it. If not, now's your chance to grab one from the back table. This is a new one for this month. Well, this is technically not March yet, but this is a new one for this year. We've been working off the same stuff, the same 3 things on the back, really trying to stay focused on the things that matter and not get distracted by a bunch of other things. But we've got new stuff because we're about to move into a new season. So hopefully you have this. As you open it up, as always, on the left-hand side, it has some of the most important information about the church, how we got started, what our values are. On the bottom, on the left-hand side, there's information about giving so that we can make sure we're able to continue to do all of this that we find so valuable. You can give in person by dropping something in the box at the back. You can give online instead of regular giving, or you can also give via Venmo. Then on the right-hand side, we have even more information that I didn't go into all of the details for our children's ministry. Also, we have our worship inserts. So this is your opportunity to let us know that you were here today or to request any information that you are interested in. The day is 2/23, in case that is important to you, and that's preventing you from filling it out. As always, you can put your contact information on the front if you want us to follow up with you, or if you have updates to your contact information. Then as you go to the back, there's different boxes for you to check specific things that you are wanting more information about. And then there's even a box about halfway down for prayer requests. So if there's anything that you would like us to join you in praying about, you can fill that out at any time during or after the service and drop it in the basket, which is on the back table at any point during or after the service. Then as you flip to the back, as I mentioned, we have 3 new announcements as we move into a new season. We've got new things that we want you to be focusing on. The first one is Lent. Lent is the season that is leading up to Easter. It begins on Ash Wednesday and then leads us all the way right up until Easter Sunday. It is often a time of reflection and preparation for Easter. Sometimes people will give things up for Lent as an opportunity to, in giving something up, they're thinking about something else. They're directing their attention towards God or towards other things that are more important than the things that they are giving up. There's a few things to know about Lent here at the Grove. Number one, on Ash Wednesday, which is March 5th, that's like the kickoff of Lent, if you are familiar with that. We have an Ash Wednesday service at the Grove, and it is at our Woodbury location. So if that has been an important thing for you in your journey of following Jesus, we do have an Ash Wednesday service, and that is happening March 5th at our Woodbury location. I think it's 7 p.m. Down here, we're going to have a series throughout Lent talking about violence. Violence in the Bible, and then violence for people of faith, and violence in our world, and how we can respond to that, leading up to what is actually a very violent holiday, the death of Jesus, the crucifixion of Jesus. On Monday, Thursday, which is the Thursday before Easter, it is the celebration of, the memory of, the retelling of Jesus' last meal with his closest followers. We are going to have a Monday, Thursday service again here in Cottage Grove, and we're going to have a soup supper again like we did last year. So we'll give you more details as that gets closer, and we'll ask for anybody who wants to to bring food as well, but just want to throw that out there that is going to be a service as well, and that is on April 17th. Again, this feels like a long way off. We'll give you all the details as we get closer, but just kind of getting it in your mind now as we move into that Lent season beginning next Wednesday. The second thing, also coinciding with Lent, is our Being the Hope campaign. There's only 3 times during the year outside of our normal offering, which goes towards our operating budget, where we ask for money. One of them happens in the fall when we're talking about our stewardship campaign. Another one happens in the summer when we are asking for donations to be able to go towards projects in and around our property. And then during the season of Lent, leading up to Easter, we have our Being the Hope campaign, which focuses on providing funds to ministries outside of our local church that are doing good things to be able to grow goodness in our community, in our country, and even around the world. Each of the weeks throughout Lent, we're going to be talking about a different organization or a different cause that we give to, and then we get to celebrate on Easter Sunday what that total amount is. Last year, the Grove, between the 2 locations, was able to give more than $90,000 to organizations outside of the church that are doing amazing things in growing goodness. So once again, we'll be talking about that much more as we move into the season of Lent and we begin that campaign, but just kind of wanting to get it in the back of your mind before we put it front and center in a couple weeks. And then the last thing is around baptism. Baptism is one of the sacraments of the church. A sacrament is an outward sign of God's inward grace that is at work in you. The Lord's Supper, communion, is one of those sacraments, and then another one of the sacraments is baptism. Baptism is this outward sign where there's water that's either placed on your head or you are dunked in water, and that is a sign and a symbol of God's grace, like pouring over you, and it is also like an initiation into the life of the church. So here at the Grove, we baptize people of any age. So we will have newborns who come, and their parents are making that decision on behalf of their newborn to initiate them into the life of the church and like symbolizes God's grace that is washing over them. We also have adults who choose to do that as well. And even, we had an 8-year-old last summer where we were able to baptize her out in the Grove. So if you are curious about baptism, if you are wanting to learn more, or if you are ready to, I was going to say dive in. Sure. We have like a big tub for older people. If you're ready to dive in, you can scan that QR code on here or up on the screen to either learn more, or if you're ready to dive in, you can fill out that form online that gets emailed to me, and then we set up a time for you to be able to do that surrounded by the rest of your church family. That is it for normal announcements. However, you do have your worship handout. I'm going to actually turn your attention to the front. It probably looks exactly the same, but it's actually not. Because, a week and a half ago, the Grove's core team voted to change our welcome statement. So our welcome statement is this thing that appears on the front of our worship handouts. It appears on... we have a big canvas as you walk into the building. It's the very first thing that you see when you walk into the building. It's also on the front page of our website. We want people to know from the get-go, this is how we welcome folks. It has been a vital thing for both of our locations for years, and one of the reasons that we hear time and time again that people choose this to be their church community. So it hasn't been changed dramatically, but we've expanded it a bit because the grace of God continues to expand and we continue to understand more and more how to describe it well. So the change in particular is a part of the second statement. I will be talking more during my sermon about a new initiative that we're seeing at our Woodbury location for a new recovery ministry. And so we wanted to make sure that we added some language around recovery in there as well. And then we also fine-tuned a little bit of the language around ability and disability. So I'm just going to read it for you. If you have comments or questions afterwards, I'd love to talk with you about them. But I did just want to throw this up here because it's going to be everywhere. And this is how we are going to continue to operate together. So come as you are, you'll be welcomed. We strive to reflect God's love to all. Be who you are, you'll be celebrated. We honor the sacred dignity and worth of persons of every age, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, ability or disability, educational, economic, and marital status, and those impacted by addiction, physical, or mental health challenges. Explore where you are, you'll be encouraged. We recognize that faith is a journey of trust and transformation where beliefs are formed and reformed in community. So, there we have it. It's already changed on here. It's already changed on our website, and we have a new canvas that's being ordered that will be up on the wall soon. And again, this is just going to be our normal operating procedure as we go forward. So let's do that. Back over to the team.
Would you stand?
The empty filled, the wounded healed, the broken back together. The poor are blessed, the weary rest. We will dance forever. The blinded see, the chained are free. The doubtful now believer, the outcast known, the orphan home. You are my Redeemer. Behold, behold, behold what love can do. Behold, behold, He's making all things new. The lost return, the voiceless heard, the mourner now rejoicing, the mountains shake, the world awake, creation all composing, the sad untrue, the earth renewed, the song has found its singer, the darkness light, the dead alive, you are my Redeemer. Behold, behold, behold what love can do. Behold, behold, He's making all things new. Behold, behold, behold what love can do. Behold, behold, He's making all things new. We've been struck down, we're not destroyed. We're sown in tears, we'll reap in joy. We've been struck down, we're not destroyed. We've sown in tears, we'll reap in joy. My eyes are open. Behold, 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 behold what love can do. Behold, behold, He's making all things new. Behold, behold, behold what love can do. Behold, behold, He's making all things new. He's making all things new.
You may take a seat.
Tomorrow marks a pretty ominous anniversary. Tomorrow is 3 years since the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Now, the war actually began like 11 years ago, back in 2014, and it's only expanded since then. And it was 3 years ago, though, that it became a full-scale invasion into eastern Ukraine. And, we've seen a whole lot of really bad things coming out of Ukraine since then. It's died down over the years, but we still see all sorts of destruction and death and this ongoing threat that they have from their neighbors to the east. Now, in recent days, if you're paying attention to the news at all, you may have seen that there's some discussions now about what it might take to end the war, and that sounds like a great thing. There's just one problem with that. There's one party that hasn't been invited to the table yet: Ukraine. So the United States and Russia are gathered around tables, and they're having discussions about what it might take to end this war and bring an end to all of this destruction. But to this point, the Ukrainians, who have been dealing with the actual brunt of it, they were the ones who were invaded. They haven't been a part of those negotiations. And just from a very practical point of view, what is that going to accomplish? If the people who are most harmed by it aren't a part of the conversation about how to repair and to be able to move on, what actual repair is possible? There has to be an acknowledgement of the harm that is done in order for that harm to be undone, right? One of the things that I want us to think about in regards to not only this, but as we go into today, is the idea of sorting through the rubble. One of the things that Ukraine is going to have to do, as they have done over the last 3 years, is sort through the rubble and figure out how to put this back together. It's not going to help anybody, whether it's Ukraine or Russia or the United States, to stand back and say, we just need to put an end to this and we need to move on and we need to cover over all of this or build back from it. You got to sort through the rubble first before you can build back. And to this point, Ukraine has not been involved in any of that discussion process. And I think that it might actually be possible for some sort of repair and restoration to happen without all of the parties included. But the one party that's got to be included is Ukraine. So if they're going to be excluded from the rest of the talk, they at least can start to figure out for themselves, what does it look like for us to work through the rubble, both the literal rubble, but also the metaphorical rubble? What does it look like to acknowledge the harm that has already been done? The lives that have already been lost, the infrastructure that has already been crumbling down. What does it look like to acknowledge that there's still this threat to the east? How do they move forward acknowledging the harm that has already been done? So as we move forward into these last 2 weeks of this series that we've been going through called Ship Talk, I want us to think about what it looks like to work through the metaphorical rubble. To this point, we've been talking about the ins and outs of relationships and mostly the good qualities and touching on a little bit of the qualities that we want to avoid. So we started off talking about the importance of having meaningful relationships, how there's something fundamentally missing within us when we don't have meaningful connections to other people. We followed up the next week talking about the importance of lexithymia. Remember that word? Words to feelings. It's important for us to be able to acknowledge our feelings and then to be able to share those feelings that we have with other people. Vulnerability is important. We can't just hold on to those ourselves. The next week we said, yes, but there's limits. We need to have boundaries and we need to understand how there are power dynamics in play when we are in relationship with other people. We talked about the importance of acknowledging the differences that we have in relationships to different people. We have close relationships where we're going to share certain things with those people that we are not going to share with others. And acknowledging those differences in relationships is important. And then last week, we talked about the importance of self-sacrifice and actually willingly giving up a part of ourselves for the good of other people in the relationship. Well, today and next week, as we close out this series, we're going to pivot a little bit and talk about what do we do when there has been harm done? What does it look like for us to acknowledge that harm? What does it look like for us to start sorting through the rubble? And then what does it look like to figure out if restoration, repair is even possible? Today we're going to focus on that first part, what restoration and repair might look like. When we look at the Bible as a whole, we have this ancient book ancient library of books put together over hundreds of years. It shows us what the life of faith looks like in all its messiness. There is an overarching theme throughout the entire Bible that largely talks to the importance of restoration and repair and recovery. In our first 3 quarters of the Bible, known as the Hebrew Scriptures, this is one of the major themes that weaves in and out of the entire story. Sometimes it's very explicit, sometimes it's implicit, but it's there throughout. Many of the writers are writing hundreds of years after the events that they are describing, and what they are doing is they are putting it all through a lens of this event called the exile. The exile was this time when the people of Israel and Judah were forcibly removed from their homes, forcibly removed from their families, from all that they knew and was familiar. They were forcibly removed from their places of worship, and they had to think through what does it look like on the other side? How can we acknowledge the harm that we have that has been done, the harm that we have done? How do we sort through the rubble and do something with this? So the writers, writing hundreds of years later, who have now largely returned from that exile back to their home, where there is literal rubble there, but there's also the metaphorical rubble of everything that has been destroyed in their psyches and within their relationship with God. How do we sort through that in order to pursue potential repair? So one of the most explicit places where we see this is in the book of Lamentations. I'm just going to warn you, I'm going to be jumping all over the place because this is a theme that is present throughout the Bible. So we're going to start in Lamentations, but it's present elsewhere. So this is a book about lamenting about all that has happened. So here's just one example. The Lord is right to judge me. Yes, I rebelled against his commands. Please listen, all you nations, and look at my suffering. My young women and men have gone into exile. I called for my lovers, but they had deceived me. My priests and my elders perished in the city. Truly, they had searched for food to keep themselves alive. Look, O Lord, I am distressed. My stomach is in knots. My heart is pounding inside of me. Yes, I was terribly rebellious. Out in the street, the sword bereaves a mother of her children. Inside the house, death is present. They have heard that I groan, yet there is no one to comfort me. All my enemies have heard my trouble. They are glad that you have brought it about. Bring about the day of judgment that you promised, so that they may end up like me. Let all the wickedness come before you. Afflict them just as you have afflicted me because of my acts of rebellion. For my groans are many and my heart is sick with sorrow. So this is obviously poetry, but to kind of put it into prose a little bit, here's what the author's saying. Bad things have happened. Bad things have happened to me. And I had a role to play in that. And I want to acknowledge the role that I played into it. This was partially natural consequences. But other people have done bad things too. So acknowledging the harm that I have done, acknowledging the harm done by others, I want to put this back together. Is it possible to come back from this? So this is a theme that comes up throughout the Hebrew Scriptures, and then we often hear a response from God in response to that acknowledgement of harm done, including words like this from Isaiah 58. Your perpetual ruins, your rubble, will be rebuilt. You will reestablish the ancient foundations. You will be called the one who repairs broken walls, the one who makes the streets inhabitable again. So again, it's like God is responding and saying, harm has been done. You're acknowledging the harm that has been done, but I still want a relationship with you. And this is maybe how we put things back together from here. So we have these stories and these overarching themes throughout the Hebrew Scriptures, but then coming out of that, the Jewish people started putting together these practices as well. Like, what are the things that we can tangibly do to show our remorse, to like start turning the table a little bit and start taking the steps towards recovery and restoration? And so just one example, this is from the Mishnah. The Mishnah was, it's like commentary from some of the Jewish teachers, from the rabbis. So this is a practice is being described where people entering the temple can acknowledge the harm that either has been done to them or that they have done. All who entered the Temple Mount entered by the right, circled to the right, and exited by the left, except for one to whom something had happened, who entered and circled to the left. That person was asked, so everyone else going in the one direction asks the one person going in the opposite direction, what happened to you? Why do you circle to the left? Because I am a mourner, they replied, and they were blessed. May the one who dwells in the house comfort you. If they replied, because I have been ostracized, they were blessed. May the one who dwells in this house inspire them, your community, to draw you near again, according to Rabbi Meir. So like the rabbis are talking to each other in this text. But Rabbi Yos challenged him, you make it seem as if they, the community, treated him unjustly. Rather, they should bless him. May the one who dwells in this house inspire you to hear the words of your colleagues so that they may draw you near again. So this is like a physical practice that was put into place for people in the temple to acknowledge either harm that has been done to them, this need for some sort of healing, or to acknowledge harm that they themselves have done. This is how one rabbinical teacher describes it. The very structure of the temple and its operating procedures were thus designed for social bonding, to identify and comfort a person struck by tragedy, and to identify and correct a person who literally stepped out of line. So the Hebrew scriptures, the Jewish tradition, we have these stories and then these practices for people to acknowledge the harm that has been done and then to take steps towards potential repair and recovery and restoration. This is a theme, however, that then continues on into the last quarter of the Bible, which we have as our Christian scriptures. Jesus was Jewish, and many of his first followers were Jewish as well. So they kind of brought this with them, and it seeps throughout Jesus' teaching and many of his closest followers' teachings as well. In 2 Corinthians, this is how it's kind of described. So then, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. What is old has passed away. Look, what is new has come. And all things are from God, who reconciled us to himself through Christ, and who has given us the ministry of reconciliation. So in Christian theology, we largely have this idea that one of the things that Jesus did was help to repair the connection between humanity and God. But then that responsibility of reconciliation and repair actually gets handed down to his followers as well. Jesus has done the work of sorting through the rubble. Y'all get to pick up that work now, too. Again, a couple examples, very practical examples that are provided to us in the Christian scriptures. One of them is called the rule of Christ. There are people, traditions that follow this like to a T. So in Matthew 18, Jesus is talking about how do you deal with someone who has done wrong. Well, here's what he says. If your brother sins, go and show him his fault when the two of you are alone. If he listens to you, you have regained your brother. But if he does not listen, take one or two others with you, so that at the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses, every matter may be established. If he refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. If he refuses to listen to the church, treat him like a Gentile or tax collector. Again, an acknowledgement of harm that has been done, and a very practical thing, a very practical process for the entire community to enter into, acknowledging the harm that has been done and taking steps towards potential repair. Another example is from this story called the restoration of Peter. You all familiar with Peter? Peter was one of Jesus' closest followers. We talked a few weeks ago about the crowds, the 12 disciples, and then Jesus' 3 that were like his closest friends. Peter was one of Jesus' closest friends. And in his hour of greatest need, when he was being arrested, when he was about to be crucified, 3 different times, Peter denied even knowing Jesus. Not a great way to go out. So then Jesus dies, Jesus is resurrected, and there is this story of Jesus and Peter having this first interaction after the case. And Jesus, of course, completely throws Peter under the bus and says, "You've done bad here, and I'm moving on from you." No. Here's his first interaction. This is in John 21. Then they had finished breakfast. Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these do?" He replied, "Yes, Lord, you know I love you." Jesus told him, "Feed my lambs." Jesus said a second time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" He replied, "Yes, Lord, you know I love you." Jesus told him, "Shepherd my sheep." Jesus said a third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was distressed that Jesus asked him a third time, "Do you love me?" and said, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." Peter did him wrong 3 times. Jesus acknowledges the harm that has been done and then gives him a process to affirm 1, 2, 3 times, exactly in response to the 3 times that he was done wrong, in order that he can be restored and Peter can eventually actually be the leader of the church going forward once Jesus leaves them again. Now, these are some, again, I can just kind of throw it at you, some very notable examples. I'm going to skip the last example, Robin, because I think that I've overwhelmed people enough. We have these very practical examples across the scriptures, Hebrew and Christian scriptures, this overarching theme that we need to acknowledge harm that has been done or that we have done in order that we might take very practical steps that harm might be undone, or that we might be able to experience recovery or repair or even potentially restoration. We see very practical ways in both the Hebrew and Christian scriptures of how that might be done. We could just kind of enact some of those things. Like I said, there are people and traditions who look specifically to that rule of Christ in Matthew 18. This is exactly how, in every situation when a harm has been done, how you need to do it. Could be helpful, but maybe there are some other more practical ways for us to figure out how to do this work. I tend not to be like a bullet point preacher, but I thought this is a very practical type of message, and so I've got 4 bullet points to hand off to you as we kind of wrap this up. Here's the first one. As we go into this, one of the things that we need to acknowledge, we need to start by truly believing that no one is beyond the grace of God, both those who have been harmed and those who have caused harm. Hard stop. This is a theme throughout the scriptures. The grace of God is big enough for those of us who have been harmed and for those who have done the harm. And number 2, experiencing the fullness of that grace requires acknowledging the harm that has been done, either from those who have been harmed or those who have caused the harm. You can't repair anything if you don't acknowledge that something needs to be repaired. You can't build if you don't sort through the rubble first. Russia might be able to try to do this on their own, but Ukraine can do it on their own. Again, one of the things that we can acknowledge, either, when I say either instead of both, is we can enter into these things as people who have been harmed and start doing some of the repair for ourselves, even and especially when that harm is not being acknowledged by the other people who are present in it. So, that's number 2. Number 3, recovery, repair, and restoration is neither quick nor easy. In fact, even determining whether it's possible involves process and shared practices. Acknowledging the harm that has been done is a necessity. But it's possible that it's going to take time and energy and blood, sweat, and tears to figure out whether the repair is even possible before you then take the practical steps to enter into this messy work of dealing with the rubble within community. We can learn from these processes again, or we can start to do some of our own, given the dynamics of our modern world and the things that we face and the harms that have been done or that we have done. So one very practical example from modern day, our Woodbury location over this time, actually, as we have been doing this series, they have been doing a different series as they roll out a new recovery ministry for not only individuals but families who have been touched by those dealing with addiction. Thus, that's an add-on to our welcome statement as well. And one of the things that they're doing in this process is that they have partnered with an organization called Thrive Recovery Resources, where they're offering a 12-week program called Strengthening Families. And actually, there was just a feature, I think, last week in the Pioneer Press looking at this new opportunity, and this is the description of the program. Strengthening Families, which will be offered in English and Spanish, is designed for children between the ages of 7 and 17 and their parents and guardians. Adults and children will share a meal, separate for age-appropriate lessons, and then come back together for a joint session. Topics covered will include: how do you create routines in the family? How do you create rituals that are fun and collaborative? How do you communicate? How do you have hard conversations? How do you reinforce and look for positive behaviors that you can reward and reinforce? A very practical thing for parents and kids as well to be able to enter into this work together, to acknowledge harm that has been done, and then take very tangible steps, or at least talking about potential tangible steps that can happen to step towards recovery. One of the things that I think is most beautiful about this is that this program, the reason this program is able to operate is because it's being supported by funds from opioid settlements. Isn't that beautiful? Like, that's an enforced thing, sorting through the rubble and then finding repair. But I think that's just beautiful for these families to be able to participate in this process because of the harm that has been done on such a large level that there's been these huge settlements. The other beautiful thing that I see in this is that it is entirely relational. It's not easy. But it's an acknowledgement, again, of that importance of connection, not just cutting things off. So as Pam Lanhart, who's the founder of Thrive, whose son died from addiction in 2016, this is how she put it in that article: the opposite of addiction is connection. If there is going to be a coming back, if there is going to be not only acknowledgement, but a recovery and repair and restoration, it's only going to happen through connection. All of that is fine and good and even beautiful, and I have to end with point number 4, which we're going to be stepping more fully into next week. Often recovery, repair, and restoration are simply not possible. However much we believe in the grace of God that is available to everyone, both those who have harmed and who have had harm done to them, however much we are honest about the harm that has been done, however hard we try to work through these processes that are set out, however beautiful that might potentially look, sometimes the result is that there is not healing that can be possible. And the result, instead of repair and restoration, is actually separation. Or as we'll describe it next week, gracious endings. So maybe some of this, maybe those stories that I highlighted throughout the Bible, maybe those practices, both in the Bible or that practice like Thrive and our Woodbury location are going through in that program, maybe that's helpful to you, or maybe it's not. Maybe you're finding yourself more in that camp of where restoration is potentially not possible. But even if it's not helpful, I hope that it is at least hopeful. May you and may we find hope that we are not in this alone, that there are people throughout thousands of years who have done this work, this hard work of sorting through the rubble, of trying to figure out whether repair is possible. And if it's not possible within your relationships, my prayer is that you might find that it is possible for you yourself. So may that be so.
Would you stand?
All this pain, wonder if I'll ever find my way. I wonder if my life could really change at all. All this earth, could all that is lost things. You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of dust. You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of us. And you make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of dust. And you make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of us. And you make me new. You are making me new. You make me new. You are making me new. Sing that again. You make me new. You make me new. You are making me new. You make me new. You are making make beautiful things. 'Cause you make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of dust. And you make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of us. You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of dust. And you make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of us. Yes. You make me new. You make me new. You make me new. You are making me new. You make me new. You are making me new.
Well, I get to do another out of the ordinary type of announcement. A few weeks ago, I stood up here and, alongside our core team representative, Rachel Henson, we were responsible for announcing that Dan Wetterstrom, our senior pastor at the Grove for the last 18 years, is going to be retiring come July 1st. Well, today I have another announcement. This comes from our bishop. It is, I literally have to read these words. It is the intention of Bishop Lynette Plambeck to appoint Pastor Laura Hanna as associate pastor of the Grove United Methodist Church, and acting on behalf of the congregation. The core team has affirmed the bishop's intention. Each church member's supportive prayers and acts of kindness during the transition period will be greatly appreciated by all of the involved persons. Laura Hanna grew up in Cottage Grove. For the last few years, she has been the associate pastor at Hennepin Avenue United Methodist Church. So she will be coming to us as associate pastor across both locations beginning September 1st. You are probably going to be seeing a lot of Laura. She's a fantastic colleague already, and Kelly and I and the core teams are overjoyed by the fact that we get to have Laura on our clergy team. So why don't we give her a hand? I'm going to send this live stream to her probably. I'm very excited for the opportunity come September to be able to introduce her to you. She's going to be a fantastic addition to this church. So With that, it was so good to be with you again on this beautiful day. Hopefully it was the beginning of a beautiful rest of your day as you go out from here. So as we go, you're already standing. I'll have you extend your hands to receive this blessing. As we go, may we experience and acknowledge the grace of God, which is for all of us. May we acknowledge the harm that has been done or that we have been done. And may we do the hard work of sorting through that rubble, whether for the betterment of our relationships or, if not that, for the healing for ourselves. May that be so. Amen.
O Church of God, united to serve one common Lord, proclaim to all one message with hearts in glad accord. Christ ever goes before us, we follow day by day with strong and eager footsteps along the upward way. O Church of God, united to serve one